In the last session, we're going to continue on this theme of transformation, and there's a new participant, which is the lectern, and we're actually going to do some live demos of some of the new and innovations that's been going on around sort of transformation. So I'm joined by a great team up here. Sunny from GISinc, Michael from the Acuity brands, and David from Atlanta Airport have been working in partnership to really transform a different type of public infrastructure, which is airports. And we all interact with airports in a different way, and many people have thought about how GIS can be applied to airports. And you might have seen David's presentation on the main stage at UC about 3 years ago. And this session is about people coming here to tell how they furthered the applications of GIS and done more. So, Sunny, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you guys for your time this afternoon. So, in a second, I'm going to actually introduce Michael and David, but before I do that, I want to kind of set the groundwork, kind of why the three of us are here together in our relationship and how we establish that relationship. GISinc is a GIS services firm. We've been doing GIS for about 27 years. Part of that, we've always prided ourselves on innovation and kind of having research and development in the fabric of our organization. Sometime back, through the success of one of those R&D endeavors, we decided to invest in the IoT industry, right, from a time and skill sets. So as we started working in that IoT space, as we started developing those skills and understanding the industry, it became quite apparent that there was a nice relationship between what we'd been doing for 27 years, which is the GIS work, and this new IoT, right, opportunity. They were very complementary technologies. You had the real-time positioning and feedback from IoT, right? We coupled that with the spatial relationships and rules and other things that you come with Esri in the GIS world. And again, they were very, kind of complementary. They actually extended the capabilities of each technology. As we learned that, we also realized that we have a lot of existing clients, right, on the Esri platform, that by adding that IoT capability, right, it could expand on that platform and not only help them from a functional standpoint, but help them from a vertical within their organization to be able to reach and help some departments that they may not could have before. We had one client with us there that was an early adopter that also saw that vision, and that was the Atlanta Airport. So sometime back, they agreed to do a POC, a proof of concept with us. And when we started that proof of concept, it was set into sort of a limited scope of area, right? The airport there, David will mention in a second, fairly large. I think it's 7 million, 8 million square foot. So we cut out an area, right, around that of about 250,000 square foot to do a navigation, kind of a search and find, right? One of the goals there was actually to do dynamic navigation. You'd seen before where you have a static route where I pick a point and it routes me. We want the ability to actually make that dynamic like your car, right? So if something happens, I change path, it will dynamically change my route, right? And so that was one of the goals. And the other was analytics, right? Something that's big to the airport with the amount of volume that goes through there is where are people, when are they there? And so those are two things that were tested during that POC, proof of concept. So at the end of that, by the definition of success, the proof of concept was success. The technology worked, right? We were able to do dynamic routing and navigation, find. We were also able to do analytics. But through that process, we also, right, kind of learned or validated some of our thoughts, and that is maybe hard to expand that beyond this limited area in the airport. Some of the challenges, main challenges around the infrastructure. We deployed that using Wi-Fi nodes and Bluetooth beacons, right? And some of the challenges of that is the Bluetooth, right? We get more accuracy with that, but for whatever reason, I guess people liked the way they looked. They kept disappearing out of the airport, right? We don't know if that was people actually taking them for personal use or the maintenance crew or whoever, the cleaning crew, but they kept disappearing. And the other problem is the battery life, right? So we started looking at a grand scale of what it would take to do the whole airport, the amount of batteries and the maintenance and the upkeep to try to handle that. And so the challenge then said, hey, this is going to be tough. Works at a small scale, as we start trying to scale that to a larger base, right, these challenges are going to get larger and larger. So the interesting thing was about the same time as the POC was wrapping up and we were working them, we started a new relationship with the Acuity brand lighting. And so with that technology, right, it became apparent to us that some of these challenges may be overcome with their infrastructure. So at this point in time, what I'll do is I'll introduce Michael Helander. Michael's going to come up and share with you guys the Acuity ArcGIS brand platform.
Thanks, Sonny. So lighting's always been at the forefront of technology advances, all the way back from Edison, creating the modern electrical grid that we have today. Acuity Brands is the largest lighting and controls manufacturer in North America. We have about an $8.4 billion market cap, just to give you an idea of scale. We've just recently launched ArcGIS Brands, which is the Internet of Things business unit within Acuity Brands. We have over 1 billion square feet of sensory networks, whether it be occupant sensing networks within this region. And the most significant and unprecedented is the amount of IoT infrastructure that's actively being used at 60 million square feet at this time. So lighting is one of the optimal deployment infrastructures for IoT solutions, and a couple of reasons for that. It's the right location. Everywhere there's people, indoor or outdoor, there's lights. They're dense, they're constantly powered, they're networked, they're packed full of sensors for daylight harvesting and occupant sensing, and all that infrastructure is already there. They're also networked, and that data is monitored already. So we're able to take this infrastructure, and then it's the right time because energy savings, a lot of building owners are switching over to LED infrastructure, and during that time, they're making decisions to add these sensors for IoT. So there's a new funding mechanism for indoor positioning and analytics and all of this type of technology that the airport is currently deploying. So at the airport, if you've been through Atlanta, you'll see that the ceilings are ripped out. We're installing thousands of fixtures. Each one of those fixtures has multiple sensors inside of that, and that's to do a lot of things and use services that Sonny is referring to. So it's made up of 4 ingredients to create an IoT solution for a 7 million square foot facility. Now we're big in retail. We're just taking that technology that we're using in retail and moving that to aviation. The first one is the ArcGIS Sensory Network. That is LED lights that have drivers for the LED, so there's edge processing there. Wireless controls that we use Bluetooth, and that is for beaconing and communication. We also use occupant sensors. We have daylight harvesting capabilities. We have temperature sensors. Those are in every light that's going in at Atlanta Airport. All that data is then networked and pushed down to a controller that then has another, we call it the fog, another capability of processing that data. And then that's pushed up to what we call the ArcGIS platform. And that's the second part of the ingredients for creating an IoT deployment. All of this data, in some cases, used to be data exhaust. Are there people in the room? Turn on the lights on and off. Now we're actually doing stuff with that, and we've created these services. First one is Navigator. That is precise indoor positioning using the lights, and we'll talk about visual light communication, Bluetooth beaconing, and also wayfinding and search, SDKs and APIs. Then we take all that data and then start processing it for analytics. How are people flowing through the building? Are these rooms used? How often are people going to this room? And tracking capabilities with asset tracking and so on. Then we take all of this data and hardware and put it into an easy-to-use solution builder that then connects to, whether it be Esri technology, our sensors, other people's sensors, and we have this IoT platform to pull it all together to create these end solutions. There's starter kits for partners like GISinc and Esri to go create focused applications within airports, smart office, retail as our biggest industry. So let's take a look at a little bit under the covers of how it works. Because lighting is probably new to a lot of people, but it's not. We have a lot deployed already, and you may have an app already installed on your phone that already has our SDKs and capabilities with communicating with the lighting infrastructure. The first one is visual light communication. So when you pull your phone out and you use one of these retail apps or an aviation app soon within Atlanta, it does 10 centimeter accuracy and 1 degree of accuracy in direction. So as you can imagine, the types of apps you can build. We currently have had to map out every chair within the concourses that we're deploying to because it is so accurate. You can start to navigate people to a specific chair. We run analytics on that data, so it is when the phone is out. Now, when the phone is in pocket, it goes to Bluetooth. Every one of the fixtures communicate and is managed through a wireless control system. Well, that wireless control is a beaconing Bluetooth system that then we use for triangulation and create really a constellation and indoor GPS system, even if the phone is in pocket. So that data is unlocked at the SDK level, and where the airport and GISinc can develop apps around that capabilities. Next is the amount of data that is coming off of all this, whether it be the airlines have an app, Atlanta has an app. Well, all that data is fed through our insights, our analytics system that starts to create wait time. So if you know, if the airline knows that you're TSA approved, they can tell how long it's taking you to get through TSA line. They can crowdsource that and then push that data back to an analytics system or back to the customer to let them know how long the wait times are within the area. And then we have assets. Now, this is an example of future-proofing. By installing this infrastructure, we're putting a lot of sensors in there, and a lot of them may not be used. There's temperature sensors in there. We're not sure how people are going to use it, but you have access to those APIs and SDKs. In this case, we're going to do a firmware upgrade next year that will allow the sensing of data. Instead of beaconing and sending indoor positioning, you can have a sensor on a wheelchair and then track wheelchairs through the lighting infrastructure as it listens for beacons and tracks them and creates a logistics system. I think they do a couple thousand wheelchair pushes per day in Atlanta alone. So if you can imagine adding logistics and scheduling and all that stuff based on location of chairs and the pushers, it can help with the efficiency of wheelchair pushing. And then finally, one of the last services, most simple, is when you walk into the room and the lights turn on, well, we just start recording that data. It's spatial data. It's a room being used. How often is it used? You get into space utilization, and each one of the fixtures within the airport as well have this capability. So these are the types of services, generalized, that are being installed right now, and companies like GISinc and the airport and the airlines are taking this data to solve problems, whether it be for facilities management, passenger travel, leasing this technology to its customers, retail space analysis, and so on. I'd like to turn it on back over to Sunny to talk a little bit about how he's extending this capability.
So Michael covered a lot of information in about 7 or 8 minutes, right? To sort of sum that up, you're using these LED lights that Acuity has been working on, right? If I'm driving that Acuity Atrius platform using the LED lights, it's literally an always on, zero to low maintenance, right? So once those in place, I don't really have to deal with those. Very accurate, so I can use it for indoor positioning, and I can use it for analytics. So you can see how that started filling the gap. So to get back to the story, so at the end of the POC with Atlanta Airport, we continue to work our relationship with Acuity. We also continue to work with the Atlanta Airport. So several projects there, including their Esri platform. So we did a recent port of the ArcGIS portal over to Amazon Cloud Services, right? We continue to develop some other applications for them. And as we go down that path, we're starting to identify more opportunities of conversion, this IoT platform and their Esri platform. So this time I'm going to introduce David Wright with the Atlanta Airport. David's going to come up and give you a kind of a brief synopsis of where they are today with their GIS, some of the current projects they're working on, and some of the future they see for IoT.
Thanks, Sonny. For the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, your safety, your customer service, and our operational efficiencies are the top priority that we hold. The GIS team is employed to meet these needs with many other business units as well. Since 1998, the Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta Airport has been the busiest airport in the world. We serve over 275,000 passengers a day, and breaking the 100 million passenger threshold in the last 2 years has propelled the airport to such a expectation for all these business units to work together to be able to meet the demands of the airport. The Atlanta Airport truly is an economic jewel of Georgia, generating a $34.8 billion economic impact for the Atlanta area. The GIS team takes advantage of the entire ArcGIS stack to support the demands of our airport. We traditionally have employed all the on-premise technologies that most are familiar with: desktop, server, ArcGIS Pro, SDE. Over the past 6 years or so, we've been moving to more of a ArcGIS Online and a cloud-based platform to better serve the customers that we have as far as internally that don't work on a on-premise network. What we've also found is by doing such, we were able to fully leverage our mobile clients as well. For the most part, we serve internal users for web and for mobile. And what we have found since we adopted this platform, dating back to the beta release in 2011, it has met 4 critical needs for the airport. Number one, it allows us to be fast, very agile, to be able to generate web map services that work without any internal support from application developers, and to be able to extend to the mobile environment as well with little to no effort. It allowed for field data collection to occur in a very rapid way from our GIS team and all the business units that we support for the product. ArcGIS Online truly has revolutionized the way we have delivered geospatial services to the airport enterprise. More recently, we began to work away from, not away from, but in addition to our operational staff, to our business units. One in this case was our concessions business unit. We developed a very dynamic, fully integrated application for our concessions inspectors who work very closely with the leasing consultants, these primes, consultant groups responsible for all the retail and food and beverage spaces within the airport. We came in to support this business unit who was stuck primarily in a paper-based process. In getting a lot of complaints about how long it would take for an inspection to occur and getting that feedback to the primes to resolve the discrepancies that they might find. What we had is we had 4 inspectors who were totally overwhelmed in a very manual, process-intensive effort. With this application, we have realized about a 50% increase in productivity, and the turnaround time now truly occurs on a monthly. Here you see in this app, what happens is that every beginning of every month, the map refreshes to a fresh slate in the yellow, and as an inspector makes their way out to perform the inspections, they either get a green or a red color status, whether it passed without any discrepancies or whether there's something that the prime consultant needs to be able to respond to. And so with this, we've truly empowered these 4 inspectors to cover almost 7 million leasable square feet across the airport. What we realized as we began to create the traditional capability for indoor mapping was the lack of ability to create that blue dot for our inspectors as they made their way through the airport. And if any of you have traveled through our airport, we appreciate your loyalty to us and your business, but you quickly begin to understand how massive the airport is. talking with Kohler over here, she said when she comes to our airport, she makes sure she wears her walking shoes and running shoes to be able to make the distance, and we understand that. But for our inspectors as well, whose responsibility is to cover this this massive area, the having to zoom and pan to keep up with your location becomes quite a challenge. And so what we're looking for is a technology that mimics the outdoor experience that we all get with GPS on our mobile devices. So indoors, that is quite a challenge. And so we're looking for this new technologies, this IoT, and to deliver such a solution for us. Of course, we want to be able to meet that expectation that the traveling passengers come to expect with the breakthrough of mobile technology. And we know that this is a very mature technology for the outdoor, and now we strive to bring it to the indoor. We've identified two categories for where we intend to begin this proof of, past the proof of concept and actually into development. Would be to focus on the passenger experience as well as the internal operational staff needs. For the passenger, I don't know, in our airport, we have 4 security checkpoints that challenge our passengers every day. How cool it would be to have the capability that you could get as you approach the ticketing and where you know the biggest stress point for air traffic, for traveling in an airport is getting through that security. That could make or break your actually catching your flight on time. And if you had the ability to show you these choke points and be able to route you accordingly depending on which checkpoint's going to get you to your gate in the quickest amount of time, and an expectation of how long that's going to take, can really reduce the level of stress for the traveling public. Just being able to either approach, I mean, our airport, when I started back about 10 years ago, we were right in the midst of about a $5 billion capital improvement program. And we expanded the airport quite a bit, adding a new runway, rental car facility, a new international terminal. Now we're just breaking the first year of another capital improvement program, a $6 billion capital improvement to actually build a new runway, and more gate complexes are the things we're really looking to do, even greater, adding greater capacity to the airport. And the ability for whether you're coming in for parking, being dropped off by an Uber or Lyft or a taxi, to be able to drop off and get to through the facility, through those choke points as quickly as possible is our aim. By doing so, the airport will be able to increase our actual revenue if we get the passenger through these choke points faster and they have longer time. When you have longer time to be in and behind security, you're going to spend more money. We're actually going to increase revenue because you give the opportunity of time for the traveling public to make those purchases. Of course, for the internal user, we're looking to continue to support the operational efficiencies by increasing or connecting with IoT and facility management or building information systems such as heating and cooling and that type of thing. We also have the desire to keep up our public safety and to be able to increase our security department with this technology, with our integrating our CCTV cameras and access control to create a true, more dynamic operational picture of what's going on in our facility. And of course, asset management is always a moving target for us. We have many things that operations uses to be able to direct traffic or make things more efficient to track these things down. It's amazing what happens at night. If you haven't flown through our airport after 11, you could truly experience a transition. What happens is that's when the construction crews come out and begin to rip down the partitions and build things out. We close off areas of flow that you probably have never experienced if you come through the main business hours. And so with that, equipment gets lost. They move things, construction workers move things, then the operational staff comes in the morning and they can't find their equipment that they use for the daily needs. And so we're looking to integrate these devices with indoor positioning and IoT to be able to find our assets in a much timely manner. And of course, all this working toward our goal of keeping up with the world's busiest but most efficient airport in the world. We realize that for our internal staff, without the partnerships of GISinc and Acuity Brands Lighting, this is quite a challenge. So we are poised. We feel like we're well positioned to continue to leverage new technologies, and we're excited to continue to serve you when you come through the airport. So thank you.
Thanks, David. So I'm going to back up 1 second here and start kind of summing kind of highlights from what David said and wrap this up. So the idea here, right, what we really see is a convergence of two platforms. You've got the Esri platform, right? You've also got what Acuity's producing, and we're at GISinc, we're working on the convergence of those into what we're calling this Geo-IoT platform. If you look at the one particular app that David showed, the Concessions App, what you have to understand is, right, this is a portal application that's been developed. What we can now do is tie that into the lighting and the other infrastructure we're putting in place. And so now I have two portals that are going to come together as one solution, right? So now when the inspector is out, it's going to automatically know where he is, or he or she, when they were there, who they were, right? So it's keeping track. It's a convergence of the two. The other application that David mentioned, you see on the screen here, this is a live shot of their navigation application. This is gates T1 and T2. So those are the first parts of where the lights are actually in place. So within those facilities, this particular area where the lights are in and we're starting to roll that out, same thing. In this case, we're actually using Esri's platform, doing navigation, real-time dynamic routing. The huge advantage to this is the GIS group at the airport, right, is they're using their normal Esri platform every day. If something happens, there's construction, something closes, when they go in and update their maps, it automatically changes the routing. Right? So this is not a separate system. It's pulling live dynamic data from that Esri platform, combining it with this real-time location data from the ArcGIS platform, and that's what's driving this application. Today in this setup, they're getting somewhere around 3 to 6 inch accuracy through the gates that already have the lights in place, and we're going to continue to expand on that. So that being said, David had mentioned, right, sort of where they're going. So with the addition of GIS and what they've been doing, with the addition of IoT on top of that, you start seeing now where there's a lot more of these entities that are available for David to support, right? The idea before is if you look at GIS, there was a certain amount of folks at the airport we could work with. Now as we add the IoT capabilities on top of that and combine the platforms, we now start opening up more and more, right, of those other groups and units at the airport that we can start supporting with the combination. So this is how we kind of draw that up, right? To give you the vision here, the idea of what we're working on is we have multiple technologies. Michael mentioned the LED lighting and how that drives ArcGIS. What we've been working on is actually building connectors to multiple. So we have Bluetooth vendors, we have Wi-Fi vendors, we have video processing capabilities. You see the RFID on here. So we've worked with those vendors and we're actually pulling all those into that same ArcGIS platform and tying that in to the Esri platform. So if there is a solution that doesn't require lights, we still have the same capabilities of doing analytics of doing asset tracking. There's a mobile SDK for on-demand services, right? So to their point earlier, it's in aviation, but we're also working in healthcare, right? In residential centers and other areas. So, this is where we see the convergence of these two powerful platforms coming together to start driving this technology. We'll wrap up by inviting you guys to come by our booth. So we have a booth over here, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 16, 19. We actually have 3 of these technologies wired, so you can come in and see the lights. You can play with that. We'll have the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth wired. You'll be able to see dots walking around and see the analytics take place. So I'd like to thank Michael and David for helping me out, and I also thank Esri for the time. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Let me ask you a question. So the obvious question, why is Atlanta building all these apps, mobile apps? Why aren't they leaving it to Delta and United and everybody else to do it?
So in some cases, they will. So to David, we talked about that earlier. I would say that the Atlanta airport feels like it's their responsibility to provide certain services. So in the case I mentioned Delta, Delta is a 70% owner, and as far as the land there, right? 70% of the gates are Delta. So Delta is the Atlanta's client. So in this case, by providing the infrastructure and the service, they can now provide that to Delta, who will eventually probably have that in their application. But in their case, the airport is serving their clients.
Perfect. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely.
And it's real time and all the change is propagated.
You got it.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.